Kalle the museum mole. A day off. Nothing but trouble. One fine spring morning, Kalle the mole awoke from a deep sleep. He rolled over onto his back, stretched out his 4 short legs, opened his mouth wide, and yawned loudly. Ah! Kalle was in the best of moods, and he started planning everything he needed to do on his day off. Normally, Kalle worked very hard helping the archaeologists from the nearby museum on their digs for buried artefacts. Today, however, Kalle intended to do nothing apart from eat and laze around, even though he was secretly convinced that the archaeologists would find absolutely nothing of any interest without his help.
Right, time for breakfast, he decided.
But it suddenly dawned on him that he had already eaten his breakfast before he went to sleep. He started to forage around outside, and it didn't take long before his sensitive snout caught the whiff of an earthworm that was wriggling its way through the ground just below him.
Ow! That hurt!
Carefully he checked the end of his snout with his foot.
What on earth is that hedgehog doing down here? And what's more, what is it doing in my tunnel? Ugh, impolite beast,
Kalle muttered angrily. Because the stubborn hedgehog refused to shift, Kalle decided to use all his strength and courage and charged headlong at the prickly obstacle. The animal rocked from side to side a couple of times and then toppled over, sticking one of its spines into Kalle's front foot as it did so.
Ow! Ow!
Kalle whimpered.
Oh, whatever the thing is, it's not an animal, that's for sure. Now, I'm going to have to work quickly, as this early worm seems like it might already have missed my breakfast this morning.
Kalle almost had it when the worm vanished. The mole made one last desperate grasp at the worm's long body when Kalle banged his head against something extremely hard.
Ow!
He rubbed the tip of his nose across the surface of the solid object he had bumped into and wondered what it was. The shape of a large lump of clay became apparent. It was square-shaped, heavy and quite hard, though not as hard as the steely spines he had encountered before. He spotted a small hole at the top of the lump of clay.
So that's how the worm got away from me. Well, so where am I going to get breakfast now? Whatever has happened to my day off?
Kalle puzzled.
It's been nothing but trouble so far. If only those archaeologists were here. They'd be happy to clear all that stuff out of my way. And could even take it back to the museum. That's it.
He decided he would ask them for help. Kalle hurried through his tunnels, digging his way as quickly as a mole with an injured claw and sore snout possibly could. Mr. Mesa, the museum caretaker, was plodding his way across the museum courtyard.
Actually, I'm looking for the archaeologists, and I'm in a bit of a hurry.
Yes, I can see that, Kalle. You'd better go straight up to the 3rd floor and call on Professor Sanderson. If you want, you can take the lift. The professor was sitting at her desk discussing work with her assistant, Theo.
Aha! You're here. What luck? Come on, hurry up. You've both got to come with me.
Calm down a moment, Kalle, and tell us what exactly has been going on, Theo suggested calmly. So Kalle took a deep breath and told them all about his empty storeroom, the disappearing earthworm, his sore nose, and even about the little bump on his head. The archaeologist sat patiently and listened. In fact, when he mentioned the iron spike, the professor, much to Kalle's surprise, started scribbling things down in her notebook. The things which have been causing you so much trouble in your tunnel could actually be important archaeological finds. So, why don't we grab our equipment and then you can take us straight down there and show us what you're talking about?
Oh, I know what. If I run through my tunnels a little way, when I reach the next molehill, I'll pop my head out. That way you'll be able to follow me back very easily.
Professor Sanderson soon arrived, but they had to wait for what seemed like ages for Theo and his fully laden wheelbarrow. In fact, it was so heavy and such a struggle for him that Mr. Mesa even managed to get there with the excavator before him. Finally, though, sweating and panting as he did so, an exhausted Theo was able to set the wheelbarrow down alongside Kalle's last molehill.
About time, too. Oh, get the shovels. Go on, start digging. Come on, I'll help you.
Kalle! It's no good doing it like that. Stop it now. What do you think was the point in bringing the digger all this way? First of all, Mr. Mesa is going to have to remove all the topsoil. To start with, Kalle watched Mesa with interest, but the longer it took, the more bored he became.
I'll go and find Theo and see what he's up to.
The professor's assistant, meanwhile, had stretched himself out under the shade of a large oak tree and fallen fast asleep.
Get up! We're ready now!
Shouted the mole at the top of his voice. Theo jumped to his feet and in no time at all was picking up the shovel from the wheelbarrow.
Can I help you now?
Sorry, Kalle. Not just now. I have to remove the last few centimetres of soil with the shovel so that we're left with just a smooth bed of sand. You can come with me and watch if you want to.
Oh, I know exactly where my discoveries are, so why don't you just dig them up?
Really, Kalle, this is not the first time you've been on a dig with us. We have to work very thoroughly and extremely carefully so that we do not miss anything or damage whatever lies hidden below the surface. What about if you tried helping Sandy?
Sandy? Professor, Theo said I should come and give you a hand. What would you like me to do?
I've got lots of things for you to do, Kalle, she smiled. First of all, you could unload all the tools from the wheelbarrow for me.
Professor Sanderson, it would be my pleasure,
Kalle replied. He climbed up and sat himself in the wheelbarrow and then started throwing the measuring tapes, trowels, Dutch hose, brushes and brooms out of the barrow and onto the ground.
Unloading's a bit easier this way,
Kalle thought to himself happily as he recklessly hurled the tin of coloured pencils over the side. It made such a loud noise as it landed that Kalle rushed to see what he had done. The tin had flown open, sending pencils flying in all directions.
Oh, I'd better hurl the camera and sketchbook a bit less violently, he thought.
No sooner had Kalle picked up the sketchbook, ready to unload, than he dropped it again. He wanted to know how far Theo had got, so he sneaked off to have a sly look. Kalle had never seen a surface quite like it.
But wait a moment,
Kalle cried.
Haven't you forgotten something here, Theo? I thought you wanted to clear away all the earth.
Kalle could clearly see a black mark near the centre of the site. As he sat there, he spotted something odd nearby. It was another patch of earth. Kalle discovered another 4 of the dark patches in the ground. Kalle! Oh, now you've gone too far. Theo seemed angry again. You've been walking all over the surface. I spent ages preparing and getting smooth. You've gone and left your footprints all over it. You can't let him out of your sight for one moment. Kalle didn't mean any harm. He was just a bit confused by the post shadows of the old building. That's all.
Old building? Where?
Excitedly, Kalle looked around, but saw neither the remnants of walls nor any bricks. Instead, the professor pointed at the dark patches on the otherwise sandy site. At some time in the past, wooden posts were dug into holes in the sandy ground here. To stop them from wobbling or falling over, the people took the sand which they had dug out and mixed it with earth, which, as you know, is darker. They filled it into the holes around the posts, stamping it down firmly to hold them in place. This is how the darker earth has got into the otherwise sandy ground.
And where are the posts now, then?
Well, when wood ages, it rots away.
What? You mean there isn't even a teeny weeny bit of it left for us to see?
Kalle was now starting to feel a bit lost by all this. All wood eventually rots away completely. Only the dark patches of earth, the traces of the posts, show that the wooden posts once stood here.
Then at least there has to be the remains of a wall or a roof or something, doesn't there?
No, unfortunately, there isn't anything left. This is because the wall was wooden too, and the roof was covered with straw.
Then how do you know where the wooden walls were then?
Well, just take a look at your claw marks in the sand. Between the post shadows, where your footprints are now, that is where the walls once stood. The archaeologists got straight back down to work, while Kalle scurried to the top of the mound of freshly excavated soil. Sitting on the top, he was able to watch as Sandy opened her sketchbook and wandered over to where one of the posts had stood so many years before. Kalle leant forward to get a better look. Unfortunately, he bent so far forward that he went flying head over heels all the way down the earthy bank. Kalle was just about to scream for help when he realized that he didn't really need any help after all. "Hey, Kalle, didn't you hear us calling you? We're just about to pull your finds out of the ground. Sandy's already started digging them up."
"I'm on my way,"
replied Kalle, but he was still feeling a bit giddy as he staggered about in front of Theo's big feet. "You can help us by burrowing through the earth carefully." There was an extraordinarily large lump of soil that needed to be moved out of the way.
"I'd better break this one into smaller pieces,"
he thought. Using all his might, he slammed his claws down onto the clod of earth. He let out a terrible yell. "Let me have a look at your foot. I can't see anything wrong. I'm sure it'll soon be all right again," Theo consoled him. "Maybe, though, now you'll have realized that on an archaeological dig, lumps of earth are carefully examined and not simply smashed into little bits." Theo carefully removed the earth from the iron spike using a small brush. "Come and have a look at this, Professor Sanderson. It looks like Kalle has found a flax comb."
"Ah, that isn't a flax comb at all. It's a mole molester. That's what that is."
No, Kalle, a flax comb was a tool used to work flax when spinning yarn.
"I happen to know that yarn is spun from wool."
That's right, it is. But instead of only using wool, it is also possible to spin yarn using the fibres of a plant which is called flax. The inner side of the bark on a flax plant stalk consists of soft fibres which can easily be removed and worked into yarn. The flax had to be pulled through one of these flax combs to remove all the shorter fibres. The flax comb also straightened out the longer fibres for the yarn.
The flax comb is just a brush used for flax then. Oh.
A few minutes later, Theo came across a few square lumps of clay.
"They all look the same as the thing I found in my burrow earlier."
"Shh!" hissed Kalle, and quickly peeped into the last 2 holes. "They've gone," he said disappointedly as he looked up at Theo sadly.
At least one worm could have hidden in a hole for me. Do you know what those things are? They're worm dens."
"Kalle, those are not worm dens at all, they're loom weights. One end of the thread was fixed to the top of the loom, and the other end was passed through the small holes of the weights. Then the ends were knotted to keep the weights in place. These heavy loom weights kept the thread straight and also stopped the yarn from getting tangled up. This made it easier to weave another thread in and out of the yarn that was hanging."
What did people want to do that for?
Well, you see, weaving one thread in and out of the other hanging threads a number of times made it easier for the people to make material.
The problem is, though, that the stupid worm I saw earlier had no idea what they really are. Otherwise, why would it have wriggled its way in through that hole?
It seems the pair of you have finished arguing with each other, so would you both please come and help me pack the tools away? It's starting to get dark. Hopefully our next dig will be just as interesting as this one has been. The archaeologists said goodbye and started their journey back to the museum. Kalle stood waving from the top of a mound of earth until they had disappeared out of sight.